Reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. John was standing with two of his disciples, and as he watched Jesus walk by, he exclaimed, "Look, here is the Lamb of God." The two disciples heard him say this, and they followed Jesus. When Jesus turned and saw them following, he said to them, "What are you looking for?" They said to him, "Rabbi," which translated means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and see." They came and saw where he was staying, and they remained with him that day. It was about 4:00 in the afternoon. One of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated the Christ. He brought Simon to Jesus, who looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You are to be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. The Gospel of the Lord. In today's first reading, we encounter one of the most influential characters of the whole Old Testament. His mother and father had not been blessed with children, and this was really bothering his mother. And so she went to the temple of the Lord at Shiloh, and she was really deeply into prayer, begging God to give her a child. And the old priest who was in charge of the shrine at Shiloh, his name was Eli, saw her and in an act of judgment decided she was drunk and went and tried to put her out of the temple. And she explained to him she was not drunk, but she was begging God to give her a child. And so the old priest was really touched by her humility and by his arrogance in making judgment. And he prayed for her, that God would hear her prayer. And he did hear her prayer. She conceived a son, gave birth to him, and after the child had been weaned, they named the child Samuel, she said to her husband, "We would not have this child, but for the prayer of the old priest Eli and for the mercy of the Lord. So I will take the child and ask Eli to raise him and to bring him up in the house of the Lord." And that's what she did. Kept in touch with him. Every year when they would go to offer sacrifice, she would bring him new cloaks, new clothing for the year, but she entrusted him to the care of the old priest Eli. And that child, while he was in the care of Eli, hears a call to him, "Samuel, Samuel." He assumes it's the old priest. "Here I am, Lord. I didn't call you. Go back to bed." A second time, the same thing. And a third time, the same thing. And finally, the old priest says, "It must be the Lord, because the Ark of the Covenant is also at Shiloh." And so he tells him, "If it happens again, say, 'Here I am, Lord. I come to do your will.'" And that's what he did. And because of that child, and being open to the word of the Lord, he plays such an influential part in the Old Testament. He ties together priesthood. Eli was a priest, one who offered sacrifice in the shrine of Shiloh. This is before Jerusalem is captured and a temple is built at Jerusalem for the offering of sacrifice. That boy, when he grows up, is considered the last of the judges of Israel. The judges were charismatic rulers whom God sent to Israel in times of crisis. Judgment and crisis, same word in Hebrew and in Greek. And so they would rise up as leaders, and he was the last of about 200 years of judges, men and women sent in times of crisis to Israel. He's also considered the first of the prophets. Now, Moses was earlier, and in another sense, Moses is the prophet par excellence. But of those who aren't Moses, he is the first of the prophets. We hear of it today. The Lord never let any of his words fall to the ground when they came to Samuel. And finally, it was Samuel who was the link with kingship. And out of kingship comes the Messiah, because it was Samuel who anoints the first two kings of Israel, Saul over some but not all of the tribes, and the boy David, who later would be accepted as a king over a united 12 tribes of Israel, and to whom the promise of an eternal line would come, and from whom the Messiah would come. And all this because a woman continued to beg God for a special blessing. And because the fruit of that blessing, her first child, because she ended up with 5 children, her first child, guided by this sort of grouchy old priest, would be the one that God would use as the last of the judges, the first of the prophets, and the one to anoint the king from whom and from whose line the Messiah would come. Just a reminder to us how important it is to listen to the little voice of the Lord when the Lord is prompting us. We never know what will come from us saying, "Here I am, Lord. I will do your will."